This video is about grain line of fabric. Grain line is very, very important when it comes to laying out your fabric to cut it. When it's time to cut your fabric, you're going to want to know a couple of things. First of all, you're going to want to know what the salvage is. So the salvage is, I cut this off of, a long piece of fabric. The salvage is going to be the edge that is the frayed edge, and usually you can see the dots. You can see the dots there in the fabric. So that's the salvage edge. The other end of the fabric, so this is the salvage edge, and then the other end of the fabric is usually is folded. So on the bolt of fabric, I wish I had a bolt, but I don't have a bolt, and I don't want to postpone videos just because I don't have certain things. So usually the fabric is going to be folded. It's going to be 2 layers of fabric. The fold is going to be on the opposite end of the salvage edge. There's woven fabric, then you have knits. Knits are a different category. The threads go in different directions for knits, which is why they're stretchy. But for basic woven fabric, it's made with a lengthwise grain and a crosswise grain. It's also called warp and weft. I'm trying to make it really simple because it can get to be confusing. And I don't want you to have to think too hard because I know you're trying to have fun and sew. So what I did was I pulled some of the threads. I pulled one thread going in opposite directions so that you could see exactly the difference between lengthwise and crosswise and warp and weft. Okay, so here, this thread, so once again, notice that this is the salvage and this is the fold. Okay, so the thread that I pulled going up and down is the lengthwise thread, or it's also called the warp thread. Now that is the strongest of the threads, and by strong it means that if you pull on it, it's going to give the least. So see, I'm pulling on the lengthwise or warp thread and it's not pulling. Okay, so then you're going to have the crosswise grain, which is this one. If you can see, it's this one going this way. That is crosswise or weft. Okay, so the one going along the fabric this way is going to be called either weft or crosswise. Okay, so now this is less strong than the lengthwise or the warp thread, but it's still very, very strong. As you can see, it's not giving when I pull it. Okay, so then you have bias. Bias goes at a diagonal. Okay, so because bias goes at a diagonal, the reason why that's important is because when you lay your pattern down on the fabric, you're going to want to lay it down so that it's straight on the grain, on the lengthwise grain, so that it falls right. Unless you're instructed to do so by your pattern, you do not ever want to lay your pattern diagonally across the fabric. Diagonally would mean if this is the fold end and this is the salvage end, you don't ever want to lay your pattern at a diagonal like this, a piece of pattern. And you'll know what I mean when I get into doing the pattern, but you'll never want to lay it diagonally. The reason why is because the bias or diagonal part of the fabric is it stretches. Okay, so see how I'm pulling that and you can see it stretching? That's called the bias. I'm going to pull the lengthwise thread, I'm going to pull the crosswise thread, and then I'm going to pull diagonally, the bias. So that right there is what you never want to lay your pattern on there diagonally, because it will be horrible. Your garments will come out wrong, they'll hang wrong, and all of this is important because of say you make a top, a shirt, for example, or no, you make a dress and you put it a little slanted, not on the bias, but a little slanted, then it's very possible that if this is not laid right when you do your pattern, if this is not laid right, then this part may get baggy after wearing it or washing it a few times. Then it may get baggy, and only in this section because you've laid it at a slant. So this may be okay over here, but this may start getting baggy or loose or have bubbly parts. One of the good things about bias is that if you lay your pattern on bias and you have a certain type of a fabric, it gives you a very fit look. It lays on your body, and since it stretches, then it kind of conforms to the shape of your body. So if you want to make a garment that's, you know, fitted, or it shows your shape or whatever, then you would do it on a bias. But you just have to know what you're doing, because it could come out really wrong. Hopefully this wasn't too confusing. I'll get into more details, you know, in other videos, but for now, I just wanted to tell you about the basics. I did this chart here. So if you can imagine that there's two threads, there's this thread that's lengthwise or warp, then there's this thread that is crosswise or weft, and then this would be the bias. So imagine that this square or rectangle or whatever, imagine that this is a piece of fabric. Now, of course, the threads are closer together. You don't see the opening of the threads or anything in between, but I had to draw. This is just how it looks for the drawing. Imagine if this is fabric. So you have the lengthwise or the warp, you have the crosswise or the weft, and then this would be the diagonal or the bias. And so imagine you're pulling on this thread and it doesn't give because it's straight. You're pulling on this thread and it really doesn't give because it's straight. So this way on the fabric, it doesn't give. If you pull on this way, it doesn't give. Imagine if you pull at a diagonal, these squares are going to open up, they're going to lose shape. And basically it stretches the threads out of shape. So those are the basics of Grainline. You're going to want to lay your fabric. If you have, like if you're doing like a shirt that opens up in the middle, you're going to want to lay on the lengthwise thread. I'm going to be showing you how to do that so that you're not confused. Do not panic. Just remember those reference points. Remember those words that I told you. Lengthwise is down, crosswise is across. Pretty simple, because across, you know, crosswise. Lengthwise, that's the full length of something. So crosswise or weft, lengthwise, warp, diagonal is bias. People in the fashion world, designers and all that, are going to be probably really irritated by my videos, to be honest, because I'm kind of one of those people that the point for me is for people to understand and to get it, not for them to learn all the technical terms for things and all that, because the way I learn is by doing it. And it's very good to know the words, the terms, and the meanings of everything. My point is for you to have an understanding of how to make garments, how to successfully make garments, because when a garment is put together and it's put together well, that's what stands out more than you being able to spit out all the technical terms for everything. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, hope this video was helpful. You can ask any questions in the comment area, or you can email me. I will be checking my email. I'll try to check it regularly. If I don't get back to you really quickly, then you know why, because I get on my YouTube more than I check my email, but hey, it is what it is. If you haven't already, take a moment to subscribe. Share this video if you think it could be helpful to someone. Thumbs up, just so that I know I'm on the right track with these videos. Basically, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.